Okay, so we have text box 111, and as I said before, we're going to go over the guiding prompts and make sure that when is your time to complete PPAT task one. We're recording now, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Make sure that, and I'll just repeat what I've said before, just make sure that when you respond to the guiding prompts, when you're taking the PPAT, that you do as they've done. A is indicated here, and then in the example, it has A, and then of course you have B where you can see it, and that's easier for the people who are reading the responses to see that. And I also mentioned that you should also go into the library of example and pull an example that is relative to your area of assignment. So let's just go ahead and dive into task one. And I'm just going to read it. You've read it, but I'm going to read it again so it can get kind of solidified in everybody's mind. And if you have to slip out, then just make sure that you review the video if you think it's necessary. To be honest with you, there's a lot of work to the task, but they're easy if you just sit down and think through them, okay? Identify your chosen community factor, and based on your chosen community factor, identify and describe one possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you could use in your classroom to further student learning. Provide a rationale, a reason that explains how the identified strategy and activity connect to the chosen factor. Now, one thing I want to say is that if you take these items one at a time, an instructional strategy is how you're going to deliver the learning, how you're going to deliver, how you're going to come up with how you're going to teach the student about that objective. And then the learning activity is very simply, what activity are you going to give the student so that they can practice the strategy or they can practice the objective that you taught? Does that make sense to you? And we all talk about a rationale. It's just tell me the reason why you use it. Explain to me or explain why you used what you used. And then it goes into asking you to identify your chosen school factor. Now, if you remember, on your charts, you have these factors. So once you list those in the chart, you just go back to the chart and pull one of those factors that's listed either under community and or school or district. Is that understood? Once you complete the two charts, then you go back to the chart to use the chart to respond to the guiding prompt. And it's the same directions. The only thing different is one is for the community factor and the other one is for the school or district factor. Any questions? Okay. So now you've read this. I'm going to slide through this. Maybe I'll leave this up and I'll read from my paper. And we're going to go over the rubric for text box 111. Okay. Now, the individual that has written this is there for you to see. So we're going to kind of evaluate the writer. Now, mind you, this is a met or exceeded standard prompt. Okay, so the first question is, does the candidate connect one chosen community factor to an instructional strategy and a learning activity in order to further student learning? First of all, what is the community factor? What's the community?
Household type.
Household type, okay. And what's the instructional strategy? I'm sorry, this is not working. What's the instructional strategy?
Differentiated instruction.
Differentiated instruction, okay. Then, look, they listed what's the learning activity?
Family Life Choice Board.
Very good. So we know that the student, the person writing this, has already identified the factor, identified an instructional strategy, and also has a learning activity. And it's better to do it this way rather than to try to write it all in one paragraph, because the reader has a hard time trying to go through, say, well, is this the instructional strategy or is this the learning activity? I do that myself, and it's just so much easier if it's broken out. so that the person reading it can see. Okay, so let's move on. So we know that the student has identified those items. Okay, now let's talk about how that instructional strategy furthers student learning. Can someone tell me what the writer said that the instructional strategy did in order to help that student to learn better? What did she say? He or she, whoever wrote this. What makes differentiation or differentiated instruction help a student to learn better? What did they say?
They get to learn at their own level without being rushed.
Okay, differentiated instruction allows the student to work at their instructional level at a rate that provides the feeling of a safe environment. Okay, so it says, does that further student learning? Hello? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
Yes, it does. If that student can take the time and, you know, work at their own rate because the instruction had been differentiated for him or her. Okay, so that was answered. Now, what about the learning strategy? What did she say about the learning strategy that would further student learning? What about the learning strategy, the family life choice board? How can that family life choice board help a student to, I'm just going to say, learn better or grasp the concept? What did the student say?
It's like a number of different activities, so whichever one they think will appeal to them easiest will be best for them to learn from. And then they can also connect with other people.
So not only that, and you have to remember that when an activity connects to the students, connects to what the student already knows, that student already is going to learn more because it connects to something that they can connect to. For example, we were talking about fire safety and as students, family member volunteers for the fire department. If the student has been to the fire department, if their father is a fireman, that student is going to perk up because that relates to that student and they're going to be more apt to learn from that because of the fact that they can also provide information relative to that topic. So if the students can select an activity that best suits them in this particular write-up, the Family Life Choice Board, then that helps to further their learning. Does everybody understand that? Can you see how that helps to further the student learning? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the candidate connect one chosen school district factor to an instructional strategy? So here we are, and we're going to come back to those later, but let's just keep moving with the prompt. Okay, so where does the candidate connect that school and district factor? First of all, what is the district factor?
Math and reading proficiency.
Good job. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so now what's the instructional strategy?
Integrated learning curriculum.
And how does that integrated learning curriculum, what does she say? What does she say will help the students to learn better? What about that integrated learning curriculum?
It will allow for students to have a wide range of instruction.
Okay, anything else? A wide range of instruction.
And it is the idea of integrated subjects, blended learning, and making connections between subject with the district's intense curriculum.
Okay, it helps the students.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Due to a district-wide grant for both subjects of math and reading, the struggle to provide instruction for other subjects remain challenging for many teachers. So with integrated learning, the subjects that are left out can still be taught.
Okay, so you have integrating the subject, it blends the learning so the student can make connection between the subjects. And if you don't have the money for maybe other subjects, then they can still be integrated or taught, okay? So that helps to further student learning because if you can't, I'm just using this is, I hope, not true. If you can't afford a social studies curriculum, they can integrate social studies with another subject. For example, reading, okay? So that's all this is. So a student can learn, even though we don't have money, I hope and pray that doesn't happen, for a social studies curriculum, the student can still learn social studies through the integrated learning curriculum, okay? So that's the connection that was made here. Do you see that? Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
Yes,
it
ma'am.
connected? We just have to connect all the dots. Now, what's the learning activity?
Physical change of popcorn.
And this is a cooperative learning activity, but it is a physical, it's called physical change of popcorn. Okay, so it says, how does the activity, this collaborative learning activity of physical change of popcorn helps the student to learn better?
Because it's cross-cutting math and science concepts all at the same time.
Okay, math and science at the same time. Does everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to make sure you see it. If you don't, you need to say, I don't see it. Because that's what this is all about. You say, well, why is all that other stuff written there? Well, what happens here, it says integrated learning through small group instruction or cooperative learning is the blend of the subject. So what the person does and what you would do once you select your learning activity and your instructional strategy, you'll explain. And always remember this, please. Explain what the scientist says, explain what the researcher says, or include what the scientist or the researcher says about your strategy or your learning activity. Make sure you include that in your writing. The research says, or the scientist says, or the information that I received, and just explain. That's what this is. It tells how it has been identified to be either an effective instructional strategy or an effective learning activity. Okay, questions? Okay, it says, where does the candidate explain how each learning activity for the student learner? We hit that. I think we did both of those. And there was also, which we didn't need for this particular one, there was also a rationale offered. And I think the individual who talked about the integrated learning talked about the rationale here about with integrated learning, the subjects that are left out can be taught. That's the reason why we have it, because if we can't have all those subjects, if there's some left out, they can still be taught. So do you have any questions about that? I see. Will we say easy as pie, or we'll just say it's worth taking the time to look through it? It's not hard at all. Okay. Now let me see if I can find the next activity. See if I can close this one out. 112. That's 111. I guess I have to share my screen for 112. Let's see if this is it. No. Okay, don't make me cry today. I hate it. Okay.
Let's not cry.
Let's not cry. Let's not cry. Well, I don't see it. I think I hit it. Let me see. Let me go again and see if I can. Let me go here. I can go to ETS and find it. I just didn't want to go that route. Let me see if this will give it to me. No, it's not going to give that to me. Okay. It's more than one way. This is the long way that I didn't want to take. For those of you who have to leave, I think you may be already gone, but if you have questions, just make sure you try to view the video and or get up with me and we'll see what we can do. Okay, elementary education. I am just ill at that for not showing up for me. Okay, 112. Y'all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right,
You're
let's
welcome.
see. Let's see what the guiding prompt says. It says, and here again, if you will look, you will see the letters, I'm sorry, A and B, A and B, differentiated instruction. Okay, so select two resources from the completed instructional and support resources chart. We talked about that the last time. You know what they are. You can read and you can find the one that says instructional support resources chart. And then it says explain how you will use each in your classroom to support student learning. That's simple enough. B, select a particular characteristic that you listed under knowledge of individual students in the contextual factors chart. Based on the selected characteristic, explain how a resource from the instructional and support resources chart differ from the two discussed in the previous prompt could enhance student learning. Okay, so here we go. How many do we have to select for the first? I'm sorry. How many do we have to select from the support resources chart?
2.
2.
Two. Very good. We only have to select 2. And once we select whatever 2 you want to select, all you have to do is explain how you would use it in your classroom to support student learning. Okay, so this one, A, what did this individual use?
Counselor.
She used the counselor.
Yeah.
And what else did she use? There were 2.
The base 10 blocks.
Base 10 blocks. Okay. Now we have our 2 resources. Excellent. So now, how would you use them in your classroom to support student learning? How was the counselor used in order to support student learning? Anybody?
Focusing on making the students feel comfortable with them and then comfortable talking to them because they have resources that outside sources don't have.
Okay, so that's there. It helps them to focus and go back. Now remember, research says, in order for remember I asked you, you pick counselor, so a little background, a little history, a little research, as it relates to the counselor would help here. And also share that, it says, according to the support resources chart, make sure you use that data, that word, that information, support resources chart, instructional support resources chart. Make sure you use that in your writing prompt, okay? Any questions about that? And it goes on to say that a counselor spends about 35% of their time with classroom guidance. Now, where do you think that came from? It says a counselor. Where did that come from? How did
Someone they may have called the school and asked how much time the counselor spent inside the classroom with the children.
You could do that, but there's also probably another way too. Good, thank you, Ms. Moore. What other way
You're welcome.
we have done that?
It could be on the counselor's webpage on the school's website, like
Okay.
statistics about counselors in general.
Okay. We could have also maybe have researched it to see when we researched about counselors, maybe that's what they told us. So we could make contact with the counselor. We could have asked them that. We could have found it on the website. We could have gone where maybe the school report card, maybe that information may have been there, or it could have been researched. Okay. And it also says they focus on bullying, internet safety, social emotional skills. Now, all that could probably come through research. All right, so then, now I only have a few people responding. Is everybody else listening to this can hear and understand?
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Yes.
I don't want you to.
Yes.
I don't want you to leave here not understanding, because this is the purpose of this. Okay. All right. Let's look at the base 10 blocks, because we had to select how many resources?
Two.
2.
Thank you. We
Two.
had the counselor, and then we're using base 10 blocks. So how did the writer explain how the base 10 block would support learning? And I can't move that up. Let me see.
It says these math manipulatives allow students to, you moved that, hold on.
Oh, you want me to move it back? Go ahead.
To visualize their learning with textile objects.
Okay, so we could also have students touching. And anything else? What else did they say could help?
The other sentence is cut off.
You
It's,
should have it on your paper. Okay, there you go.
There it is.
What happens when they use base 10 blocks?
It
When
helps them
students
visualize
visualize
the,
numbers
Okay,
and parts of numbers.
okay. Thank you so very much for that. So you can see the question was, explain how you would use each in your classroom to support student learning. And it says it will help our students to, first of all, allow the students to visualize learning with textile objects. And also it says to visualize, okay? Visualize the numbers and parts of numbers as they break those cubes apart. Okay, and then was there a little bit, let's see if they used, and you can go back, these math manipulatives allow students, that's part of the research, and it goes one example of using these manipulatives, and let's see, it says, this facilitates good learning, especially for a visual learner, person who has to see, and also that person who has to touch, because those base 10 blocks will also help the student to be able to touch and see also what they are doing. Okay, good. Now, the activity they're going to use for this one, let me see, is the characteristic from the chart was what? For students, knowledge of students. For knowledge of students, they use what? Look right here. What do they use? B.
differentiated instruction.
Differentiated instruction, okay? It says, based on the selected characteristic, explain how a resource from the instructional and support resources chart under getting to know your students or knowledge of your students differ from the two. So actually, even though they asked us for 2 in the beginning, they're actually asking us for how many total?
3.
3.
3.
Miss Moore, you gonna give everybody some food?
Sure.
if we can get to it. Okay, so
Yes, ma'am. Come on.
thank you. So we have 2, and now they're asking us for a 3rd one, but they're also asking us to select that 3rd one from the knowledge of individual students, okay, from the contextual factors chart. So we use the what? Instructional resources chart. Now we got to use which chart?
Contextual factor.
Contextual factor.
Thank you very much. Contextual factors chart. Explain how the resources from the instructional and support resources chart differ from the 2 discussed in the previous prompt. And it says that could enhance student learning. So all you have to do, don't let all of that wording get you twisted up, because what you're doing, you're looking under the contextual factors chart, under the knowledge of students, you're going to select that characteristic, and then you're just going to tell how it enhances. So that characteristic, again, this person used differentiated instruction. So how will that help the students within this classroom learn better, improve student learning? So what does it say? And remember here, it says, as the instructional and support resources chart states, and it says differentiated instruction is instruction. This is what? This is what? Research. Remember research, write that down. Add research to your topic. This is done in part by the use of an online resource that is provided for the school district. And then they said, as the instructional and support resources chart states, the resource is a comprehensive online math curriculum program that creates an individualized education plan. So without us having her chart or his chart, somewhere in their chart for students, they have a math program, okay, that provides differentiated instruction. Do you understand that we don't have the overall chart that they have, but we're just assuming that this is the information. So in the instructional support resources chart, there's an online math curriculum that is used. So now for differentiated instruction, how does that characteristic, differentiated instruction, help your students to learn better and support student learning?
It gives them a more individualized approach and allows them to fill in specific learning gaps that they may or may not have. And for those that don't have these gaps, it's just extra support for what they're already teaching in the classroom.
Now, is that what she said here? Is that what you see?
It's kind of the gist of what she said.
Yeah,
Fix
okay.
learning gaps by working at a student's exact instructional
Exactly.
level.
I'm just testing you. There's learning gaps. There's the learning gaps. That's a good job. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that we saw what was there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff.
Good. Okay. Let's see. Now, does the candidate select a characteristic of the knowledge of students in the context? Is there a connection between this characteristic and a resource that is different from the two discussed in the previous prompt? And I think here, when she talked about the contextual factors chart, and then she also talked about a resource and instructional resource and instructional support resources chart. I think she just discussed both of those succinctly. It says, where does the candidate explain how the resource based on the selected characteristic could enhance student learning? And that's what we just talked about. Now, she has an example. If the student struggles with math fluency, the program will, she just went through and talked about a specific area which brought itself to describe the differentiated instruction in that math program. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Are
No,
those two charts for us, like to do and turn in now, or are we just supposed to be looking at them now to get an idea of it?
Those two charts?
The ones that you just went over, and not the contextual factors and the other one, but the one that we just talked about.
The contextual, the support resources, I think. All those are due. You should have, I think I sent those to you to look at. I sent you samples, did I not?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have samples. So what I need you to do is kind of look at those. I sent you examples. You will have to develop those charts or complete the two charts, write a letter, and submit to me your getting to know you activity. But this is week 4. This is all due week 4. Now let's talk about something. Let's talk about, and Mr. Thompson having a difficult time getting into the schools, and I know most of you do. Unless you're already teaching, it's really rough getting into that school system. So here's what we're going to do. I just need you to share with me. I need you to research getting to know you activities. I need you to decide which one you would use in your classroom, okay? This is just a sample, and I just need you to upload it. So if, for example, I think the only two that I shared with you were interest inventories. Well, this just changed. The getting to know you activity changed last year. Prior to that, that's what ETS wanted, an interest inventory. But I guess they decided that it kind of boxed the teachers in a lot. So they just decided that whatever it is that you wanted to use would be okay. So I just gave examples of interest inventories. But if you Google getting to know you activities, you will find a vast array of activities that you can use. Okay. So now once you find an activity that you think would work with you in your classroom, that will be your getting to know you activity, and all you have to do is upload it in that space. Okay. Everybody understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Your letter should be written. If you wanted to use a letter, just say, dear parents, my name is Ruby Bell. I work at the University of Mount Olive. Give them, explain, tell something about yourself. And then I think I've indicated some other things that you needed to include in your letter. How many of you saw that? I sent that to you. Yes, you got
I did.
Yes.
So write your letter according to the outline that I have given you, and you'll be fine. Now, if you decide that you're going to do, well, I'm going to do a newsletter, that'll be just fine. In your newsletter, you block it off. You may say about the teacher. And then another section may say about the students in the classroom. And then another section might say, how can we connect? Okay. Well, how can we make this year a good year for everybody? And then just put your information there. If you want to take the time and develop a class newsletter, you're welcome to do that. That will be your communication to the parents. And always, always remember to put your communication, the form as to how that parent can get up with you. Okay. And then let's talk about your contextual factors chart and your school resources and support. You don't necessarily have to go into a school to do either one of the two of those, but you do have to know the school. Sometimes you can go online and research about the school and you can get all of that information. If you can't find it, make sure you look at the school report card. You go on the school's website, you can probably find a lot of that information. And if you can't, you can make contact with the teacher. You can call someone up. If you know a principal, you can talk with the principal and he or she can give you the information that you need. Just, and it's an example and that's fine. We just need you to have an opportunity to see what those artifacts, and they're called artifacts, to see what those artifacts look like, and so that you would have seen them before you get in the classroom, trying to student teach, trying to develop lesson plans, trying to develop assessment plans, trying to teach, keep abreast with what you have to teach, and then look at the document and say, oh, what in the world is this? So we want you to be familiar with it, and that's what this is all about. It is a lot to do during your student teaching internship, along with the other things that you have to do, but it's not hard if you take the time, breathe, read through the activities, and I think you can do it. Any questions about that while I pull up our last?
Miss Dr. Bell, I have a question.
Yes.
So since I'm already in the classroom, can I use my actual things that I have done already? Like my meet the teacher letter, all of that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Not a
Thank you,
problem
great.
at all, at all.
Thank you.
You are quite welcome. And that goes for anybody else. If you are already there, use the material that you have.
Dr. Bell,
Yes.
on the bottom of this one that you've got, it said example 2 did not meet or partially met.
Uh-huh.
I thought you said last week, don't pay any attention if they didn't meet them.
I wouldn't. Now, if
Okay.
you want to see what it looks like when it's not met, you go right ahead. I wouldn't
Okay.
even put that in my mind. My focus would be on, to me, now y'all can decide. You can see what, well, this one didn't meet, so what was it that they didn't do, and then compare the two. That would be good if you want to do it. But if it were me, I will focus on what I needed, because this is the example that they gave you. This one met, so that would be where I would focus. But it's strictly up to you. For the purposes of this class, we're only going to do the met and exceeds, because I think it's more valuable to you to do it that way. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right, now we're at 113. We're maybe gonna skip a week. I have to look at my schedule because I have class. I have another class before we do the next group. And we might, let me look at my calendar. And so to the 15th. We probably won't meet anymore until that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. We probably won't meet anymore to week 29. I'm sorry, the March 29th. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And that'll give you time to get your other assignments done, plus the remainder of these, okay? So we'll look at the 29th. But then I have another class in between that I have to meet. So I think the 29th is when we can meet. Okay, let's focus on norms, protocols, and agreements. Norms are what strategies or activities or rules and regulations that have been set for in your class, forth in the class. Protocols are just the procedures that you say we're going to do every day. One protocol may be as soon as you enter the room, there's a morning work assignment. You have to sit down and get started. And then agreements is what we as a classroom decide that we're going to do. Okay? So we have A, B, and C. And as you can see here with this screen jumping, B and C, and we have A. A says, describe one example of a classroom norm, protocol, or agreement. Then we have to explain how the norm, the protocol, or agreement, your classroom rules, your classroom procedures, your classroom policies, facilitate instruction, how it enhances student learning, and how it impacts student learning. We kind of talked about an example maybe before. And then we're going to look at, it says describe one technology norm. You have a classroom norm, you have a technology norm, and then you are to identify and describe one norm, protocol, or agreement that you and your students could create together. That's that agreement. That's that agreement. And even though you may not have students, you can just think in your mind, since we don't have to write, but you could think, if you had to do this, you could think in your mind, what would be a good example of us, meaning the teacher and the students working together in order to come up with a rule. Let's just talk about that for a minute. If you were in the classroom, what would be a good opportunity for you to allow the students to help you to come up with some type of agreement, a classroom norm, or some type of procedure that would help make the class better? What could you think about?
At the beginning of the school year, like during the first week of school, you could do like a whole group thing where the students help you come up with the rules for the class, so then they're more aware of them, they're more used to them, they're written so that they understand them.
Thank you, Blair. I think that's a really good idea. I think that what would happen is that you could allow the students to help develop the rules. I serving as a principal, we had a conflict resolutions group, and when we had issues, we would allow the students to peer mediation, conflict resolution. We would allow the students to kind of hear out what was going on among themselves, their peers. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, their punishment was so much more severe than probably what I would have recommended. I'm thinking, okay, this works. But, and then the students were receptive because everybody had agreed that whatever we get is what we get. So sometimes it's very, very important and very good to allow the students to participate. So that's what you have to do. You have to describe explain how a classroom norm, a technology norm, and also something that you developed together. So what was the first one? They said what? The classroom norm is interactive read alouds, right? And let's see what B says. B for the technology protocol is what? Laptop?
Laptop.
Okay, Constitution.
Community.
Laptop Constitution.
Constitution.
Okay. And then what did they do together? They developed what?
The golden rule
The golden
agreement.
rule agreement.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so now let's see how the interactive read alouds enhances student learning. Okay, who wants to tell me what happens with the interactive read alouds? How does that enhance student learning? Okay, interactive read alouds, IRAs, are read every day. Each day, students are held to high expectations for this instructional time. The idea of the Fontas and the Pinos curriculum for the IRAs is to instill a joy for reading within the students. So that's what part of that? That's research, right? Okay.
That's right.
Fontas. The expectations during this time help students anticipate consistency within the classroom. Consistency, that means things are going to continue on as they should. Without these rules, the focus of instructional time may be more about management than books themselves, than the book themselves. Thus, defeating the purpose of the IRAs. Having high expectations allows the student to engage in this time so they truly enjoy reading. The expectations are as follows. Actively listen. The elbow, elbow, knee, knee, okay? Sitting. Give and take. During turn, what is it? During turn and talk, students should learn in and talk. No hitchhiking. I mean, I guess if I'm talking, I can't get on to yours. Make predictions. Make tests to make tests to self connections. Participate in learning and respect others. All these expectations enhance the learning because the less time is spent on behavioral issues, the more time the student can truly find a love for reading. So go back. All right. And the question is, how does this facilitate learning? Interactive read alouds. Anybody? We just read it.
They engage into it because they enjoy it. Once it's a whole group, they're just more engaged because they all are doing it together.
They're reading, but there's some, right, they're doing it together, but everybody has a what? They got to have elbow, elbow to knee, knee. They're sitting elbow, elbow, knee, knee. I guess that's elbow to elbow, knee, elbow to knee, elbow to knee. They got to give and take, so everybody's got to listen. You got to give a little bit, but you got to also take. You got to take turns talking, and you got to allow the other person to talk. I guess that's the hitchhiking piece. I can't jump on what Blair is saying and take over. So I think the rules there, because it's an interactive read aloud, and it shows the students what expectations there are. So they'll sit quietly and everybody can pay attention, and it helps them to stay focused, as was stated, and then that they can learn because everybody's not speaking at the same time. People are not up and about moving. Do you understand that?
Mhm.
Okay, good. All right. Let's move on. All right, now, how about lab 2 constitution? Have you read this one, or should we read it?
It's a written document.
Is a written document that the class created so that students behave in a manner that allows students to be responsible for their laptop, okay? So they gave us a little background into that. The Constitution lists articles of rules that all of the students came up with together. The collaboration and conversation led students to an understanding of their responsibilities while having their own personal laptop. Each student signed the Constitution. The Constitution articles are as follows. I will not disrespect my laptop. I will hold my laptop with both of my hands. I will charge my laptop while it is at home. I will follow directions and only do what I am asked to do on my laptop. So we can stop there because it goes on and it has a list. So it goes back to the question, how does that enhance student learning and impacts the learning environment?
They're held responsible for it.
Okay, they are all held responsible. And if you know that you can only do what the teacher has told you to do in your laptop, that keeps that student from, hopefully, with the teacher walking around for close proximity, looking at other things on the laptop, okay? Going to other places. And it also says, I will use my earphones if the sound is on if there's sound on my laptop, okay? And it says that the idea of the Constitution enhances student learning in the subject of social studies. This is what she's teaching, but it could be any other subject. It could be science. The students communicate as if they are a part of the community and work together for the betterment of the community. Now, I have a question. Do you think that at any time, if there's a student who's not following the Constitution, they're going to be turned in if the teacher doesn't see it?
No.
I don't think
I
somebody
know
else
for a
think
fact
they'll
they
be
won't.
Y'all don't think that's gonna be?
I know
No,
for a
unless
fact
it's
they
something very detrimental.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, well, okay. And says, then it goes on to say that the Constitution can be changed or amended. The laptop Constitution impacts the learning environment because the students are working together. They're learning, it says social sciences, that's that subject, and actively following the laptop expectations. So they're constantly learning to follow the rules. So that's important to that. And then the Golden Rule Agreement, apparently they worked together to come up with a golden rule. In order for the Bloom's taxonomy to be upheld within the classroom, students must understand that they are safe within the classroom environment. The model of Bloom's taxonomy shows the hierarchy of goods. This models the objectives within the classroom to form good relationships. One way to create meaningful relationships is by forming a safe environment and bond with students and amongst the students. An agreement should be formed between the teacher and the students so that everyone understands expectations and can grow in meaning relationships. One agreement that the class should have is an agreement called treat others as you want to be treated. We all know that's the golden rule, right? This agreement is at the beginning of the school year. This agreement is at the beginning of the school year. Students should have a meaningful conversation about the importance of being kind and respectful of one another. This tactic facilitates good communication and instruction between students and their teacher because all students learn differently, have different home lives, and have different talents and struggles. The more honest the teacher is about the differences within the classroom, the better the atmosphere is conducive to learning. When students treat each other as they want to be treated, they recognize that they can be themselves, thus begin participating in learning. So the question was, how does the golden rule, and I'm asking you based on what I read, how does the golden rule impact learning, the learning environment? How does it facilitate instruction? And how does it enhance student learning?
So ideally, it seems to get rid of this idea of disrespectful judgment. Just this is my interpretation. I'm not like reading directly from this, but it seems to get rid of that and creates more of a safety net for learning and being wrong, and also like the students encouraging, oh, there might have been this, it might have been that.
Exactly. Thank you. And doing to others. And if my answer is incorrect, should I fear retaliation from the other students?
No.
No.
And my answer could be incorrect lots of times. But if it is, I shouldn't have a problem with that. I shouldn't feel that I'm going to be ridiculed because I don't know the correct answer. So I think that that's what this is all about as well. Everybody feels safe. I can answer. I can feel good in the classroom. And I can raise my hand to answer. And even if my answer is incorrect, nobody's gonna say anything negative to me about it. The teacher's gonna help me to get it right, or I may have some other students. So I think that's what's important here. So, do you have any questions?
No.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Have a good idea? And the only thing I'll say is, and this is a ways away for some of you. If you, when it's time to do your PPAT, go view the examples. That's what they're there for. And I'll tell you this, remember this task is not scored by ETS. It is scored by your supervising professor, but they are looking at the rubric. And sometimes students do have to rewrite them because they didn't do what they had to do. And this just helps you to learn your students prior to getting into the task 2, 3, and 4. They're good activities, and they make you think, because the purpose of teaching is to gear our instruction to our students to make sure that they learn. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other concerns? Okay, now I've provided for you samples of your charts, your artifacts. the 2 charts, a letter, and also a getting to know you activity, but it's not limited to an inventory. Those are due week 4. I said we're going to meet again on the 29th at 5 o'clock. Just know that the Zoom is not mandatory. I just hope that it helps you to understand better on what it is that you need to do. So when we come back on the 29th, we will do the other 3 activities, maybe to help you understand. So if you don't mind, in between that time, print them all, read the rubric for each one of them and kind of solidify in your mind and think about the answers to, so that you can respond to the rubric, okay?
Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions for me? I hope, and I remind you, OS01, I think, did not have, for this week, you did not have the terms for the diversity term, thanks to some student who sent that email to me. I appreciate that so very, very much. I've imported those for you, so they should be there. And I said that just to say this. If you see something, say something. If something's not there, if it's not clear, send me an email. I don't mind. I thank you so much for catching that so that I can correct it for you, because I don't want anybody frustrated, and I don't want anybody to feel like that they can't do what has been required of them. So
Thank you, because I thought I was crazy.
no, it wasn't there. So you just should have said, am I crazy or is it you? That's what you
No,
should.
ma'am.
Look, no, I'm telling you, it gets rough around here sometimes.
I'm sure.
It gets so rough. So I do,
So-
I appreciate it. Yes,
The Zoom on the 29th will be at 5 o'clock?
yes,
Okay.
okay.
I have a question about next week's assignment, because are we just supposed to take notes and submit the notes
For what now?
for next week?
Yeah, there's one chapter. You don't submit those notes now, but you need to read that chapter. I don't ask.
So we don't have an assignment to submit next week, because that's all that's up there. That's why I was kind of confused.
If it says just to submit the just the notes, you have to read.
Mhm.
Let me see. What chapter is it?
Chapter 9, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. You read and take notes for your own benefit. Test time.
And so you said we do not have to submit the notes.
I don't think so, because I don't think I have a place for them.
So with this Sunday's activity that we have to turn in, how do you want us to turn it in? By question? Just
Okay,
answer
why
the
you-
question?
Is that for the societal context of schooling? Assignment, thoroughly read chapter 9. You may want to summarize what you read in the form of notes. These notes are for you, as they will be helpful for your final. These notes do not have to be submitted, okay? And I see where I have that, so I will correct that for you. So that's good that we went there. You don't have to submit any notes. So you say, well, how are you gonna know? I'm not gonna know, but you'll know when it's final time that you read that chapter. And so the only thing that I will grade you on for that week will be your forum post, okay? Read the chapter, because it's important that you read it and take notes so that you can, so that you will have those. And let me tell you why that's there, because that's week 3, and what's due on week 4? Those 4 activities.
4.
So
Yeah,
I tried
that's
to
what-
give you a break. I try to give you a break so that you can work on that. That's all that is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't need you to.
Thank you.
And if you decide you don't want to read the chapter, you don't want to take notes, that's on you. That's on you.
It's our grade, right?
But it will show up.
I pray.
It'll show up for test time.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a good chapter. That's a good chapter to read. I think if you start to read it and you have time, you can start it and stop and start it and stop, whatever. But it's a good chapter to read. Good read.
So the one that says for week 3 with chapter 9, the part that says, I'm looking on the syllabus where it's the assignments and it says address each statement in one paragraph per term. That's the notes
No.
part you're talking about?
No, you don't have to do that. I'll look back at that syllabus, but you don't.
Oh, okay.
That chapter 9, I need to look at that because we're not doing that.
Okay, so we're just doing the form only.
Well, I need to check that out because what happened when they imported it, I had removed that and they imported it from another course. So
Okay.
I will check that for you. Thank you. But there should not be an assignment for that week 3 because I want to give you time to work on your information for week 4.
Okay, so then next week, all we have is the brown eyes, blue eyes experiment questions.
March 15
And
through 21.
yeah, okay, all right.
And societal context, March 3 forward. Okay. Yeah, okay. I correct that for OSO 1, 2020. Oh, wow. I got to look at that one. OSO 2, you got a lot of stuff I got to correct because they imported
Yeah, I think that's why I was confused.
Don't be, because that's all you have. I need to work on yours. OSO 1, you should be good. Let me double check for you, please. OSO 2, I need to work on. And I'll do that tonight. So just worry, just for week 2, just focus on week 2, which is your Prezi and your cultural diversity. Okay. Brown eyed, blue eyes. That's March 15th. Let's see, and I've got to go back. I've got to check on the Okay, week 1, week 2. Brown eyes, blue eyes, and the Prezi with the terms. Let me make sure they're here for this. Okay. All right, y'all.
They're on there for O2. It was just O3 that was confusing me.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're good on 2, and I'm gonna check 3 for the other class. Everybody?
Thank you.
You what? No, thank you.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good evening.
Same to you. Good night.
Have a good
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Mr. Thompson, when you get things ready, shoot me an email.
Okay, will do, and I'll set up a time to come down and meet with you. All right, thanks.
All right. Good night, everybody. Y'all take care and be safe.
Good night.
Good
Yes,
night.
ma'am. You too.
Same to you.
Leave me.
Good night.
Good night.